what if we had a third arm coming out of the chest? And I think that's what happens sometimes. You have an idea, but then it's this complete idea. You have a complete idea, and then you go, what if it was bigger? What if it was grander? What if it was crazier? And that is usually the downfall of projects.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Story Building, where am I wearing pajama pants? You will never know. Today's guest is nerdcore musician, someone whose logo looks like the face of the Pokemon Metagross. And something here is fascinating because when he answers the call of the void, the train is on its way. But what is the point of his existence? How does he know that he's alive? Because he's locked in a box. Don't open it. He should give up with every move. He knows that we are watching him, but if his mask shatters over and over, then I'm sure that he'll find a brand new way. He's not smiling on the inside. All he wants to do is get away from the misery. It's a mystery to him. He's pioneered the freak show. But what is it that keeps him here? The bright lights or the atmosphere? He's spinning out of control. Deep in the dark, he's falling apart. This is the curse of Edward Murray. It is KryFuZe. Welcome to One Story Building.
Hello.
So I thought it would be best for me to start this with my favorite topic in the whole world, which is, of course, myself, because my introduction to nerdcore music and my departure from nerdy gaming stuff happened almost literally at the same time. In 2017, I was in rehearsals for a musical I was working on, and for a few months I was getting into nerdcore music. Pretty much when Caleb Hyles did a cover of Build Our Machine, that's when it really activated for me. And I was also finishing my playthrough of Dark Souls 3. I beat the last boss on my first go, and I felt this weight lift off my shoulders. Like I no longer needed to play that many video games anymore, as I was getting into songs about video games. Now, going to your earliest work, you started around about 2017. So, what nerdy things were happening around that time to you that made you take your first steps into the nerdcore world?
Oh boy. What nerdy things weren't happening to me? Uh I I was 14. And I was very deep into the Five Nights at Freddy's community, very deep into the lore, very deep into pretty much every aspect of it. Um and ever since I was very little, I always just I always played video games. It's not exactly a unique tale, but yeah, I it was kind of my escape from the stresses of life. Um, and so we had the FNAF community around that time. Um, I was also wanting to be a game developer. And if you've seen any of my most recent streams, you'll see that urge never went away, because I'm currently working on and actually finishing up my own FNAF fan game. Um, but yes, a lot of nerdy stuff was going on at that time. Uh, mostly just FNAF,
Mhm.
but you know, uh, my life has always been dominated by electronics. So
Mhm.
uh, yeah, and Living Tombstone was a big inspiration. Started around late 2015. Um, I always loved Tombstone. Even before FNAF. Um, I've loved Tombstone since I was like 11. Uh, a while, quite a while. But yeah, that was one of the big inspirations. And then all of a sudden one day, I well, I had been messing around with music production for a while, and I made some pretty bad stuff. Some pretty bad, just like ugh. I'm glad that it's not on my channel anymore. It sounded horrible. Uh, but at one point, I finally just had this idea, and I was like, I need to make this. I need to make this. It was like something else airdropped the chorus of Afton Family into my head. It's like it just happened. All of a sudden, it was there. Um, then I spent a couple days writing the rest of the lyrics, and then over the next 2 weeks, I made the song, released it, um, and I am still blown away by its performance. But around that time in my life, that's the nerdy stuff that was going on. FNAF, um, attempts, numerous failed attempts at game development, and my own ventures into electronic music.
Mm. We'll get into your game developing and Afton Family specifically ever so soon. But I would like to bring up your name because when I start these kinds of videos, I very often ask people about the origins of their online names, and I've never been more curious when it comes to yours because what the hell is going on? The first
Mm.
syllable, it's cry, like to shed tears, but spelt with a K. And the second syllable is fuse, like to light the fuse of a bomb, but there's a Z in there. And despite being one word, the F and the Z in fuse are both capitalized. So what is going on with this bizarre chimeran of an internet nom de plume?
Very good question. I've gotten this question a lot, but maybe this can settle it once and for all. Um, I I came up with the name when I was like 12. I originally wanted to be like a metal artist. I originally wanted to do like metal stuff. I was very inspired by like just the really dark, gritty stuff, stuff that young teens listen to as I was, I was a heavy, deep Slipknot fan. Um, and I also really liked this one band named Cryoshell. And I don't know if you're familiar with Bionicle, the
I
Lego one.
not only am I familiar with Bionicle, I'm familiar with Slicers, which are like the grandfathers
Oh my
of
god,
Bionicles.
that's insane.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah. So Bionicle was always a huge part of my childhood, and so was their promotional band, Cryoshell. And when I finally decided, you know what, I really want to do something musical. Um, I was like, I was like, it has to incorporate something from their name because they inspired me so much. Um, so I ended up doing what everyone does, at least at one point, and I used an online band name generator. Um, and I got two options came out that I was like, wow, these don't suck. Those be actually one of them really did suck in retrospect. Uh, it was either Dead Town or CrossFuse, and I was like, CrossFuse. That sounds. I could go somewhere with that. Okay. Well, what if Cross turned into Cry from Cryoshell? Okay, CryFuZe, CryFuSe. That looks kind of. It doesn't look good. It's like it sounds cool, but it doesn't look good. Okay, well then let's make it kind of wicked.
Mhm.
Let's just add a little pinch of evil in there. Turn the very nice and kind C into a big mean K,
Mhm.
and the very rounded S into a jagged Z. Uh, and then I also for the capitalization I took inspiration from the way that Slipknot writes their logo because it looks like they have multiple capital letters even though they don't. It's just the way that they make the sizes of the letters. And I was like, you know what? damn, that actually looks cool. That looks really good. And it just stuck. It just stuck.
Yeah, sh sharp K's and Z's are very evil looking letters. I'm reminded of Lord Zed from Power Rangers. Very like
Mm.
Z words, Z one syllable words. Like no hero is called Lord Zed.
Oh.
So I have to ask about your musical history because it's always a treat when a nerdcore musician can actually play a musical instrument, and you play at least the guitar. And I also have to ask, can you read sheet music?
No, I cannot.
Oh, okay. Interview over. Shut down. Okay. Anyway, whatever. Moving on. So before you were even thinking of becoming Mr. KryFuZe, what was your introduction to music that made you want to keep on doing it?
Oh man. That's a that's a very long story. I just kind of I've just kind of always had a bit of a musical inclination. I was messing around on the piano, not making anything good, but just messing around on the piano when I was very young. And as the years went on, I just continued to like music more and more. And whenever I would play a game or something, it would always be the music that brought me back to it. There'd be some games where it was just the gameplay, but a lot of games I was, I would always go back and replay like the Mario levels that had my favorite music in them, just because it had my favorite music. Um, so uh, what made me want to make music?
Sure.
Uh, I know where the train of thought that got me here started. I don't know if I intended for it to get me here, but that's where it got me. Um, so I I was doing, game development, or at least trying to. And I heard from another person online that they were using, this software called Fruity Loops or FL. And then I decided, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I think I downloaded LMMS first, which is Linux Multimedia Studio. Very limited, very limited, uh, music software. But eventually, I started making more stuff, and then I graduated to FL Studio, and then within about 6 months, I made Afton Family. It just kind of snowballed into what it is now. It's like it started as kind of a side thing to the game development, and then it took on a life of its own, became its own thing. So I think that what made me truly want to do music um, was wanting to give more life to the things I was creating.
You brought up video game music, which is one of my favorite topics of all time. I've brought this up a couple times before, and I want to bring it up now. Um, I am not a fan or th that much of a player of the Legend of Zelda series, but even I understand that when I listen to the song from the piece of music from Ocarina of Time, I think it's called Song of Storms. I forget how it goes, but I sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. That's the part that I recognize.
Mm.
I've mentioned
Yeah.
before
Love that.
that even though I'm not a fan of that franchise, I just never got into it. I understand that a piece of music like that has like that specific example has probably saved someone's life. Like them listening to that probably saved them from just like giving up on life. So,
Mhm.
video game music specifically, did you have any specific video game pieces that just that you just love so much that that inspire you and bring you back to your childhood?
Um, man, I have always loved Ocarina of Time soundtrack. Um, I don't think that there are many games out there that have a soundtrack that good. Um, I like the soundtrack more than the game, and I do like the game, but uh, let's see. Other than man, I'm thinking what video game soundtracks really bring me back.
I mean, you can't really say FNAF because that's all just like
Yeah,
kooky ambience.
yeah. It's like oh yeah, the FNAF 2, whooshing sound that
Mhm.
happens when animatronics are active. Favorite song ever.
Mhm.
uh let's see. Man, you know, I really do think that it's oh I just remembered a couple. There are some songs from the Mario and Luigi RPG series, um, from Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story. That there are some tracks from that just teleport me back to being like 8 or 9 years old playing that game. Specifically like the final boss themes. They're just they're just masterfully written. Um, yeah, even just thinking about them now, it's like almost like no time passed at all.
Mhm. Mhm. And you have to save listening to them for like special occasions. It like when I have classic examples of video game music that I listened to when I was like 11, 12, and I feel wrong when I listen to it just sort of casually. I have to save it for like a special occasion for,
Yeah,
if I'm feeling nostalgic.
yeah, it's sacred in a way.
Hmm.
Our,
Hmm.
our our experience with music and with art is, in my opinion, a very sacred thing. And it if you're not in the right headspace or you're not in the right place to hear a certain thing, it almost feels like a personal sacrilege.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, no, I feel that with a lot of music. If I'm in the wrong headspace and I put music on it, it almost offends me. it's it's almost like I'm like, this is not where this song belongs. Nuh-uh. No, not the time, not the place. Um, but no, I haven't really gone back to those songs in years and years. It's been a very long time. Um, I'd say another series of games that has a soundtrack. It's literally two songs. It's the credit songs. Um, is the Portal series.
Hmm. Sure.
Um, yeah. Still Alive and Want You Gone are just they're masterpieces.
Mm.
It's hard to make a robot have soul, but they did it.
Hmm. Yeah. Not a year goes by that I don't think to myself, I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't make a Portal 3, but I'm also very glad that they didn't make a Portal 3 because it's like when people say that Faulty Towers didn't need like a 13th episode because it's just this perfect pack of 12 and then it finishes. There's Portal
Mhm.
1, Portal 2, they're both great, and then it finishes. It doesn't,
Yeah,
keep on going. They don't go to
yeah,
like
yeah,
space or whatever.
yeah. It doesn't need to be dragged out. It can
Mhm.
be. Um, it. I think a lot of creatives, uh, and I'm sure that I'm sure that I would fall victim to this too. But sequelitis. Um, if you are telling a story and you have told the story and there's no story left to tell, it feels wrong to manufacture one. No matter how much money it's going to make you, it is almost disrespectful to the art that you have made,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Mhm. Well said. Beautiful. To anyone who takes a quick glance at your music history would be able to tell and would be able to tell from the last like 20 minutes that you are a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. I tried
Yes.
finding how many Five Nights at Freddy's songs you made, and I got tangled up in the mass of them all. It's at least 30, I think. Now, I've never played the games, but I've watched walkthroughs of them all. Sister Location was my personal favorite, not that that matters. So, to someone who doesn't know anything about the franchise, how, or more importantly, why did you get so musically into it?
Oh man, you're asking some good fucking questions. um, how and why did I get so entwined with FNAF musically? Um, I've always found the story very inspiring in a way. It's this tragic tale that then turns it, at least before Steel Wool, and of course it's not Steel Wool writing it, it's still Scott, but before the Steel Wool era, it was kind of this closed, this open and shut thing. It's still very hard to figure out. That's also another thing that drew me to it. I love puzzles. But man, what drew me into it musically? I would say it was mostly the Living Tombstone. Um, you combine the Living Tombstone with that inspiration, with the fact that by Sister Location, the story was no longer just about trapped souls being freed and finding a way to free themselves, which is already very inspiring by itself. But it was also the story of a very dysfunctional family. And you know, for reasons I won't get into, that was that 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 aspect of the story really meant something to me. Um, and I think it was that made me go, I need to start writing. I need to start getting my thoughts and my feelings through the lens of this through the lens of this story out onto the page, out into the computer, um you know and that's what I think happened. It started with how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and then putting that through the lens of these games. um and I think by the time I made Afton Family, there was, I think I was very, very into it by then. But yeah, I think that's what got me into it.
When I was preparing for this, I uh, went to go see Afton the Afton Family music video, and I noticed that when I did watch it on just a casual day where I was like, oh, I'll go and watch it now, it was on exactly its 9 year anniversary, and now it
Oh
has
wow.
it has over 9 million views, and it's one of your earliest videos, just
Yeah.
generally. So, what do you think caused it to get watched so many times?
Um so I think that this goes into a combination of psychology and marketing. Um so I think this song kind of filled a gap. There were no songs yet about the Aftons. There were songs about the animatronics. There were songs about Springtrap. There were songs about the Crying Child. There were songs about Elizabeth Afton. There were songs about all of them as their animatronics, as their animatronic counterparts. But there was nothing yet about the family itself, the family that led to the downfall. Um, and I was like, you know what? There needs to be a song like this. There needs to be. That's part of the psychological aspect of it. Another aspect of that would be that I think it touched on something that was very real, maybe a little bit more real in terms of family dynamics and um, pain than most other FNAF songs, because most of them were basically saying, "Oh, you know, come here and survive the night," which is it's good. There's some really good songs, that can be made with that. But then there's also the psychological aspect. The the feelings behind it are the feelings and emotions that make up the story are very important too. And I think that they needed to be conveyed. And I think that that's something that drew people to the song. The other aspect is the marketing side. I would say that um, in the marketing side of things, um, I didn't restrict anybody from using the song. Like, so many people heard it and were like, "Can I use this as background music in a video?" And I was like, "Go right ahead, just credit me."
Mm.
It was like, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you don't claim it's yours. Spread it as much as you want. And then a friend of mine ended up remixing it. A couple of friends of mine ended up remixing it, and those got bigger than the original. And then around 2020, when lockdown happened, um, everybody on FNAF TikTok, I guess I wasn't on there at the time, but everybody there decided to start doing like these cosplay dances with Afton Family as the sound, and then it blew up even more from there. Then AP Angry Piggy did a remix of it, and it just snowballed. Then it got added to the official Five Nights at Freddy's movie playlist by Universal, which was a mind blow to me.
Mhm.
But I'm still grateful for that. That was amazing.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think it started as the psychological and use this however you want aspects. But I think that after that, it was it ended up being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I remember when I went to go see the first Five Nights at Freddy's m movie, and I wasn't really paying attention to the music that was being played, but there was a moment, like a certain melody that just sort of popped into my head when it was playing. I was like, the sound that's playing over the speakers sounds kind of familiar, and it was I forget what it was exactly, but it was like a Five Nights at Freddy's Nerdcore song that I had heard. I was like, oh wow, they're actually playing it at the movie theater. It was this moment where I realized that like internet stuff was sort of stretching out into the real world now.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy that that's happening. Like it's even more than Five Nights at Freddy's now. It's the back rooms too. It comes out
Mhm.
next month.
Oh
That's
wow.
going to be amazing. And
Hmm.
Digital Circus has a contract with Netflix.
Hmm.
So many of these nerdy internet things. That's the type of things that most parents wouldn't have faith in if their kids were making it. You know, it's getting to the big screen.
Hmm.
It's becoming this much larger thing, um, which is it's really inspiring to see that.
Hmm. I've been recently getting into the SCP universe, if you know about
Mm.
that. I
Oh,
mean,
that's a rabbit hole.
yeah, I listen to descriptions of like someone that makes like a 30-minute video talking about what each one is. I'm like, half of these could be movies. They could be like hour and a half
Yes.
long movies. There's clearly no shortage of ideas. We just have to, not we, but people
Yeah.
that make movies have to get them out there.
Yeah.
On April 27th, 2017, you uploaded a remix of I Got No Time by The Living Tombstone. In the
Yes.
comments section, Mioplex said, "Dope!" exclamation mark. And you responded by saying, "Thanks. I think it kind of sucked, but I'm glad someone likes it!" exclamation mark, lol, exclamation mark.
I
Now,
remember I remember leaving that comment.
well, I mean, retroactively, you can sort of see things that you've done as practice for something that you're going to make in the future. So do you remember uploading an upload where you thought, okay, now this is like genuine quality, and I have to now upgrade my standard for all songs in the future? Was there like a single moment, a single upload when that happened?
That has happened a few times, quite a few times actually.
Hmm.
Um, and I always find those I always find myself a little bit anxious after that because I'm like, what if it was a fluke? What if just all the stars aligned for me to make this really great song and then everything else sucks? That's not ever the case, so I have kind of trained myself to not worry, but whenever this happens, it's so strange because I'm like, before this, I thought I was making top quality stuff. And it happens enough times that I'm like, I kind of see everything I make as practice now.
Mhm.
Um, I'd say that the first time I remember it really happening was my 2023 FNAF Ruins song called "Save Me." Um, I don't like the way I sang on that song at all anymore, but at the time, it was a breakthrough for me. It was the biggest sounding production I'd ever made. Instead of sounding like it was just made in a little box, it sounded like it was in some kind of stadium, and I was like, "Wow, that's huge." Then beginning of 2024, my girlfriend was the only one who actually had, actually had the courage to tell me, "Hey, dude, you need to work on your voice. Would you listen? Would you listen to somebody with your voice?" And I was like, Probably not." She was like, "Okay, so work on your singing." And I was like, "Okay." So I did, and then that year, 2024, I saw enormous growth. So shout out to her, for actually having the courage to tell me that I needed to work on my voice. But aside from that, um, you know, uh, it uh, it happened also at the end of 2024 with a song called "Wash It All Away," about mouth washing, the game mouth washing. Um, if you haven't heard of it, it's a
I've
extremely
watched the walkthrough.
okay.
I
Okay.
don't play many games.
Um,
I'm a bit too
okay.
busy, so I usually just
Yeah,
watch
fair.
them through.
Yeah. Horrifying game with horrifying story. I was very inspired by Anya, and
Mhm.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do what I do best, and I tapped into something deep and emotional, and just kind of let it happen.
Hmm.
Um, and the production quality was a huge step up, and then it happened a couple times throughout last year. Like I'd say it happened 3 times last year. Um, it's the most it's ever happened. It happened with my Poppy Playtime Doctor song called "Watching You." Then it happened with Afton's Revenge. That's a big one. And then it happened again with my FNAF 2 movie song, uh, "Do You Hear Me Now?" But yeah, it seems to be happening more and more, and I think that's a good sign.
Speaking of your voice, when you were starting out and you were and now when you're singing your songs, when you started out, did you think to yourself, well, I have to sing this because might not have access to other people to sing the song if their voice might be a bit more appropriate to this specific character, or did you sing it because you knew that you had the talent and were the most appropriate singer for the song? Like, did it have to be you?
Well, it's a combination, in a way, because I've always liked the idea of just doing the whole process on my own, doing the whole thing by myself. Um, you know, I'm sure that you've noticed that compared to most other nerdcore artists, I don't collab very much. Um, I drop a couple collabs per year, and sometimes I'll feature on somebody else's song, but I'm not a collab artist. I very much prefer doing it on my own, even back when I certainly was not the most fit for the job. Um, like when I was much younger and before I really knew what I was doing vocally, I certainly was not I was not the right person to be singing my songs. Um, but I just stuck with it. I stuck with it, and um, there's this whole debate about talent versus skill going on in nerdcore right now because of AI. But I stuck with it. I did not have I was not naturally talented at singing, not at all. But I stuck with it long enough that I developed the skill. Um, so uh, you know, I'd say it's a combination of starting out. I certainly didn't have access to a lot of other people, any singers really. I was the only one that I really knew. When I started, I didn't have any friends that were in the space. I knew a couple people by their usernames on the FNAF subreddit, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this. Um, and I also just I like working alone to a degree.
Hmm. I've mentioned before, at least once, that I had an extremely sour reaction to not only the existence of Poppy's Playtime, because it just seemed like another mascot horror thing where a bright and colorful thing chases after you and blah, blah, blah. But also I had that same reaction to nerdcore musicians that made songs about the first episode, like the nanosecond that it came out. And I double checked your music history, and you didn't do this. You didn't make a song
Yeah.
right after chapter one. So well done, bravo. What do you think that it is about games like Poppy's Playtime, Choo Choo Charles, Indigo Park that gets such an immediate reaction from nerdcore artists before really anything has happened yet?
All right, time to get really real. It's about the views. It's
Hmm.
about the algorithm. It's not about what you're going to be most passionate about. It's not that every nerdcore artist goes, "Wow, this brand new thing that I don't know anything about. Yeah, it might be made by a friend. Cool." There's a lot of people who are also friends with the creators of these games. Um, but a lot of the artists, it's just, "Oh, that's going to be trending. Okay, let's make a song about that." And while I don't dislike that mindset in terms of from a business standpoint, I don't dislike that mindset because that's going to help with growth. That's going to help raise your attention, raise the amount of people who are paying attention to you, and that's going to help grow the business and build your career. Um, but I've never liked. I don't dislike the mindset. I just don't like when that happens because it it almost feels disingenuous. It feels like, oh, this thing came out a day ago. Here's here's a song about it, and sometimes artists will make something really good because they're really inspired within a day or two. I don't necessarily pay attention to the community so much to this to the point where I would know any names that do it that don't do it in a very tasteful way, but I know that there are. I know that I've seen it. Um and if you really are just very inspired, um then go for it. If your goal is to grow your business, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to, say, hey, you shouldn't do that. But it does make me wonder what the audience experience of Nerdcore is,
Hmm.
because it's so fast moving. It moves too fast, in my opinion. Like by the time, by the time we've been able, before we've even had time for our stomachs to digest the newest episode or franchise that's come out, another bite's being shoveled into our mouths. Um, it's this fast moving, you know, brain rot era of the internet, where it's just everything's accelerating, and it's very hard to keep your head. So I have to wonder what it's like on the audience side of it. Because last time I was really on the audience side of Nerdcore, it was like more than half a decade ago. Um, I'm in the community. I'm in the community, and I make songs in the community because I still very much have a passion for writing songs about things that I like. Um, am I going to do that as soon as something drops? Maybe, maybe not. The past couple of things, including the Digital Circus episode coming out, I just had a really good idea for a Digital Circus song that I feel is very relevant. Um, and to maximize my potential profits and my potential views, my potential gains from that, it's going to be released like the day after the episode.
Hmm.
um but I it sucks that that's kind of the speed that it needs to be for you to not fall off.
Hmm. I'm reminded of your Poppy's Playtime, the recent Poppy's Playtime song "Broken Things," and you made like a short, I think, if that's what the kids are calling it, where you were like, I was very
Yeah.
inspired by the title "Broken Things," and I made this song that's inspired by that idea. And then the game came out, and you were like, this game is like the worst installment of the entire thing. So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
that's that's what happens when you make the content before the actual thing that it's based off of.
Yes. Yeah. No, whenever I do that, well, not whenever, but sometimes when I do that, I find myself going, the best part about this thing was the fucking song I made. Like the thing I'm coming back to is my own song. Like,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, like it always feels like a gamble making a song before something comes out. I've done it a few times. And if it's what ends up working, then I'm going to follow what's working. But I'm never going to sacrifice the emotion and realness, the raw feeling that I put into my music for keywords and buzzwords and things that I know will work.
Hmm.
Because I do see that happen, and not just in nerdcore, but I see it everywhere. Whenever there's a trend, instead of making meaningful content, what some people will do is they will make the most captivating content possible. And I just think it's unfortunate that because of the people who do that, because of the way that internet retention span works and the way that TikTok is built, um, it has become impossible to get people's attention without doing the same thing.
I'm thinking about your song "Nothing Matters" about that triangle guy from Gravity
Yes,
Falls.
Gravity
It's
Falls.
it's a show that came out like a decade ago, so that's not like a recent trendy thing. But before you even have an idea for a song, but you know that you have to make one to keep up with the momentum of your content, what aspect of the cultural nerdy zeitgeist are you looking at to get an idea, get inspired to make a song?
Yeah, so when it comes to, it's like, okay, okay, I know I need to write a song, but what about? Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how do I figure out what to write a song about? Well,
Mhm.
usually I will look within what I consider to be um my circle of reach, as it were. Um, you know, what have I made that is popular, and where does it extend to in that nerd culture zeitgeist? Um, and in the center of it is FNAF, of course. But what else extends into it? A lot of Poppy, some Bendy, a little bit of Indigo Park. Um, and sometimes it's other things. Um, Sometimes it's stuff that's going to go viral with the same group of people that are probably in my circle. Like sometimes the circles kind of move. Like there'll be like a fast moving one that just kind of eclipses into it for a bit. Like I'm expecting that's what's going to happen with the Backrooms movie. And so I've already started thinking, I know I'm going to need to make a song about the Backrooms movie. How do I want it to sound? And I've already started thinking like, okay, what kind of styles am I going to go for? But when it comes to picking an idea, it's really just what's within that circle at the moment. And if I feel like it's going to move out of my circle uh too fast, I don't even bother. Even if everybody else is doing it, I'm like, you know what? My time would be better spent on something that I know I can that I know I can do, and I know I can capture the relevance of.
As we all know, every nerdcore musician, with literally no exceptions, has a song where a mascot horror character walks or runs down a hallway and sings. What do you think it is about? What do you think it is that motivates nerdcore musicians to have literally that exact visual in their songs?
Um, it's scary and it's easy. It's
Fair enough.
if you if it, it, one of the main things that attracts people to music or to art is a sense of danger. Sense of, it's like you can't have like a good story without a conflict or without an enemy. So we are very drawn to paying attention to that enemy,
Mhm.
and we are also drawn to how cool the enemy is, because because of horror throughout the last, what, 70 years, 70, 80 years. um you know it's no longer, oh god, that thing is terrifying. It has become, wow, that thing is scary, but it's also really cool. um so if you capture that, you have the really cool scary thing coming at you, along with along with a really good beat, then people are more likely to stay and watch and listen, I think.
Okay. I have been watching a lot of um, Conan O'Brien clips lately,
Okay.
and I noticed that a lot of his skits, really the only thing that I watched when I was, a kid watching him because I didn't care about celebrities, they repeat jokes. And I'm thinking, okay, for a show like that, they can afford to do that because most of the audience comes and goes and they don't always see the same sketch or the same jokes. When you're putting together a song, how much are you thinking about your loyal fan base who would notice if you reused a line? And how much are you thinking about making a song for someone who would be introduced to you first by that song that you're making?
I always try to find a balance. um So reusing lines, that is something that I do intentionally as references to previous songs. Um, in my recent song, Far Too Broken, in the final chorus, you can hear you can hear a reference to "You Don't Want to Know" and "The Curse of Edwin Murray," just as kind of ad lib background vocals. Um, and I like to do that because it's almost an Easter egg for the loyal fans who I know are gonna. It's almost like I'm saying, if you catch this, I appreciate you for knowing this.
Mm.
um, and I also try to make sure that every song I release is something that if somebody is stumbling onto it for the first time, they get at least somewhat of an idea of what I'm about, and they maybe find something that could be a new favorite.
Great. Well, we've finally reached it. That in celebration of your 50,000 subscribers, or just because you felt like it, you're currently in the process of finishing your Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. So the question is, where do you get off knowing how to make music and also do game development?
Ah, a lot of I had a lot of free time. I've had a lot of free time. I've had a lot of uh, I didn't do my homework when I was in school. I didn't do my fucking homework. I I very much preferred to just mess around with stuff on the computer. And I started with game development, and then it turned into music, and then I dropped game development, and then I picked it back up a couple times, and then I dropped it again, and now it looks like I'm finally actually going to make something um, that's not going to be abandoned.
So
But yeah,
what can we what for someone who doesn't know what is this game? What can we expect from this fan game?
uh, well, I think my scope for it started out a little too large. Um, it is going to have the classic Five Nights. I originally wanted to incorporate a mini game into it, but I had this spark at the beginning of the project, and I think I overestimated the spark. This spark kind of I wouldn't say it died, but it's uh certainly not a very lively fire right now. Um, it's I'm close to the end of it, and I only work on it very infrequently because just there's so much else to work on musically. So what to expect from the game? I would say uh, the the first Five Nights, an extra night, which serves as 2020 mode, just a max mode, and maybe some extras. There's some extras in the menu, which is like, hey, here's some work in progress stuff of different characters. Um, but it to me, I think it's mostly a thank you to the people who got me to this fucking ridiculous number of 50,000 people who took the time, at least a few seconds to say, yeah, I actually want to see more from this guy, which means the world to me. And it's a thank you. It's a thank you to those people, but it's short and sweet. It's not going to be anything grand. It's not going to have any Easter eggs or huge, lore behind it. It's just going to be, it's just what you see is what you get.
Mhm. You said that the scope was too big, and at the start, and I remember watching the recording of you making the game, and you were talking about how that's also true with other things where sometimes you make a song and you said a phrase. It was like something scope, like scope creep or something.
Yes, scope creep.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like power creep, which people talk about in the Pokemon franchise, where every new generation they have to make Pokemon that are more like different and unique, and they end up making them accidentally more powerful than the
Oh
previous
my
ones, and
god.
it
Yep.
just keeps on getting yeah. So this isn't even one of my questions, but I'm just wondering when you're like making a song, putting a game together, just making anything. How do you Like, how do you bring down the scope so you don't just snowball into a project that just ends up not getting made because it's too big and complicated?
That's a good question, and I have a really good answer that hopefully anybody who's watching this, I if you struggle with that, hopefully this helps with it. I do something called a sketch. Basically, I use just a piano and I make the chords of the song. Um, I go through the chords, I go through the melody. Sometimes I add the bass, like what I think the bass line should be. And I go through the whole duration of the song, or like two or three sections that I can arrange in a different way at a later time. And then I write the lyrics, and I make sure that it's a closed circuit of this many verses, this many choruses, and is there a bridge, is there not a bridge, is the bridge part of the chorus? And I nail it down, and I try to trust my intuition with it, try to trust what's going to feel right in this song. And I don't let the idea, I don't let the ooh, that could be cool, really. I don't I don't let it steer me away from the skeleton that I have.
Hmm.
I'm not going to go adding. If you're building a person, you wouldn't add bones willy nilly to the skeleton. Um, you might say, oh well, what if we change these facial features, or what if we put them in this type of clothes, but you wouldn't go and be like, what if we had a third arm coming out of the chest, and I think that's what happens sometimes. You have an idea, but then it's this complete idea. You have a complete idea, and then you go, what if it was bigger, what if it was grander, what if it was crazier? And that is usually the downfall of projects. Not even just in music, and literally anything. um and I catch myself doing it all the time. you know i i'm I'm always thinking of other projects, not even just within KryFuZe, but I'm always thinking of other projects and thinking, oh, could I do that, could I do this, could I do that? And usually I realize, eh, scope is way too big on that idea. Can't do that, at least not yet.
Mhm.
Um, but at least for music, having a very strict sketch of what the song is, how it's arranged, how long it's going to be, and then what else also helps is what style. Like, pick a song that you love, or pick a game that you love, pick a book that you love, a story that you love, pick something that you already love and know. And if you're going for a style, try and style it like that.
The advice that I take when it comes to at least songwriting is you should be able to play the song with two hands on a piano and know what the song is. If you need 11 fingers to play it, it's too complicated, so you got to bring it.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, yeah, especially when you're just getting down the very basics of the song. You're putting it together at its base building blocks. Yeah, if you overcomplicate the building blocks, it's gonna be filled with weeds.
Yeah. You somewhat recently changed your logo to the to
Yes.
the to the Metagross head, as I call it. Your store has that logo on the water bottle and only that logo. What happened recently that made you think that you needed an aesthetic change?
I had a consultation with this music marketing guy named Jesse Cannon. Um, he is, I'd say he's probably, when it comes to music marketing, he's one of the smartest people in the industry. Um, he has worked with some big names. He's worked with, like, I think one of the bands he's worked with is oh man, I can't remember, but he's worked with some big names. He knows his shit. So when I talked to him, one of the things he said is, he when we were on the call, he put his mouse over my logo and he said, "This is good, this is okay, but you can do better." And I was like, "Yeah, I probably can." And so like right after that, I was like, "Okay, Time to start. I looked very cartoony with the purple kind of cell shaded one. It was like I was going for a very cartoony look, which it served a purpose for its time, but it's not merchable. It was not merchable. Um, and yeah, it's recognizable, but uh, you know, is it going to look good as the logo on a thumbnail when the thumbnail is all of that size? Are you going to be able to recognize it right up here if it's, if it's that weird, purple and black shape? It's going to be a lot easier to see it if it's, a more jagged, simple kind of, you know, um, almost almost metal look.
Mhm.
In both senses, metal as the music and as you know, the element.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's got that sort of simple modern chrome sort of design,
Yeah.
like what every house looks like what every kitchen in a house looks like nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, oversimplified to hell. Thankfully, I didn't go too oversimplified.
Mhm.
Just like get rid of everything except for like one of the eyes. Like
If,
subscribe now to KryFuZe Plus.
yeah, if it works, yeah, just like an eye and like a plus sign next to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a big script here that this is an idea that I brought up before, and I would like your opinion on it. So, recently, an interesting thing happened recently where Glitch Productions released the trailer for their latest show, Gameoverse, and I saw a bunch of comments all over the place about how Glitch specifically is just doing the same tone of show, where it's something family friendly that's contorted into some kind of meta nightmare thing. And I saw these comments and I immediately and instinctively agreed. But then I started thinking more about it and Glitch specifically, because the trailer for Gameoverse is that we've got the kids' spelling bee game that gets all messed up. The Amazing Little Circus is that. And that's kind of it, because
Yeah.
Knights of Guinevere isn't that. The trailer is that, but the show itself isn't that. Murder Drones isn't that. The Gaslight District isn't that. And I
That's
realized,
my yeah. That's my immediate counterpoint. Is like
hmm,
Gaslight District is not
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It just seems to be like this common trope that's all over the place in other things. But
Yes.
when any single person does it, they're viewed as doing the same thing that they've been doing rather than just like different people doing the same thing and people focus on that person and call them repetitive. Bendy, Poppy's Playtime, Five Nights at Freddy's, Indigo Park, they're all made by different people.
Yeah.
But why do you think this idea of a bright and colorful world having a sinister underbelly to it, why do you think that's become so popular over the last like 10 years?
Um, I think that it is. I think that the roots of it are pretty dark. I don't think that it's. I think it's a trend that is rooted very deeply in the loss of wonder in the world. Um, Potentially childhood trauma, because a lot of it is, childhood things that become traumatic. And it has become acceptable to discuss childhood trauma. And when it becomes acceptable to discuss something publicly, it becomes part of the zeitgeist. Um, and you combine that with nostalgia for a world that will not be coming back. Like even outside of the mascot horror and like, you know family friendly thing twisted into horrors beyond our imagination, even beyond that, there's things like the resurgence of Frutiger Arrow that are you familiar with that aesthetic?
I've never heard that phrase in my life. What is it? Say it again.
Frutiger Arrow, look at this mouse. This
Okay.
is like this type of aesthetic of like uh I'd say the best way to describe it is the Windows XP and Windows 7 look,
Okay.
where
Mhm.
everything's kind of aqua and
Yeah.
and very, it's very futuristic, but it's also very incorporated with nature, and there's splashes of water and
Hmm.
bubbles, and just this 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 paragon of the future that just died. And all of Gen Z, we're just trying to figure out how to get a good world back,
Hmm.
how to get a good future ensured.
Hmm.
How do we make it so that it's not all just oversimplified, gray, and subscription based?
Hmm.
you know, I think that I think that I think that the trend of family friendly thing twisted into horror, when you think about it from that lens, makes a lot of sense, because it's no longer just this random trend. It's an expression of the public's, and especially the younger generations, uh, distaste for what has happened to those things. They've been erased, and replaced. We had these family friendly things. They got erased and replaced with you know just this horrifying model of reality. um so I think that it's, even if it's not conscious, at the very least an unconscious manifestation of our desires for something better, and an expression of this generation's frustration.
Hmm. One of the most intelligent conversations that I've had with one of my stupid friends was I asked him, why is it that recently a lot of people, a lot of stories are delving into like the 90s and the early 2000s? What was so interesting about that time? And why is it that people seem to think that the 90s was like the best decade, even pe people that weren't, you know, kids during that time, like I was? And he said, he immediately goes, because the 90s was the last decade of analog technology. And I was like, oh my God, because after that, everything, like we had, cassettes. I mean, vinyls were a bit before my time, but like physical stuff. And then after that, everything
Yeah.
became USBs and digital. So it's like everything had a bit of like it was harder to duplicate things. It was harder
Yeah.
for things to be some kind of subscription based thing.
Mhm.
It was there. It was in your hands the whole time. So yeah, like
Yes.
it's yeah, pe people are trying to go back to a. I mean, I don't want to say simpler time. I wish I had more of a creative thing to say, but yeah, a time when you had something, it was yours.
Yeah, it was far more tangible.
Hmm.
All media was far more tangible. You want to own a movie? Great. You've got the box. You've
Hmm.
got the box. You got the disc or the VHS. You want to own music? You've got the CD. You got the CD or the cassette or the vinyl. You want to own a game? You've got the console, and you've got the actual cartridge, or the disc. And without that, it's like some of the soul of creation has just been sucked out.
Hmm.
um it's bland. I saw this tweet a while back that was uh somebody posted a picture of like this 90s or 2000s, like, I think it was like a stereo system, just like a CD player system, um something like that. And then one of the quote tweets said, I miss buttons so fucking much, man. like
Hmm.
like where do the buttons go? Like, the smartphones even used to have buttons. Now it's all screen
Yep.
except for the power button. When are they going to phase that out? When is it just going to be a double tap to turn off the phone?
Mm.
You
They
know, uh,
they used to have jacks. Now it's just
just
the
Bluetooth.
the charging thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Um,
have lightning cord based headphones. I don't
yeah.
like Bluetooth very much. I like the tangibility of a cord. I'm out walking with like out in the city or whatever, and I'm just the only one with cords hanging out of my ears. And yeah, I don't feel silly. I feel sensible. It's the
Yeah.
people with magnets next to their brain. They're the weird ones.
Well, I guess I'm weird then. You know.
Well, I mean, you've got chords coming out of your head.
Yeah, no, I mean my listening headphones. So I got
Okay.
like Galaxy Buds, but
Mhm.
you know, when I'm certainly when I'm making music, you know, those are like the last thing that I test a mix on.
Mhm.
But no, I very much prefer things to be tangible. Like
Mhm.
I'm fed up with Nintendo, like with their whole. Are you familiar with what they're doing with the Switch 2, which is like game key cards? It's like, oh,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
open the
yeah,
package and
yeah.
there's a downloadable key. It's like,
Mhm.
what's the fucking point of the package?
Yeah.
Like you give a package so that you have a physical product, but inside the package where the physical product is supposed to be, you've got a digital redeemable code.
Mhm.
Great, great. We're just we're just accelerating into having nothing.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we're just it's just accelerationism to the max, and boom, we're gonna end up, you know, or you know, have you seen Black Mirror?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like 15 million merits. Like we're gonna end up just in that, you know, like, you know, just on the you know exercise bike generating energy and going back to our rooms that are just screened. You have to
Yeah.
watch the ad. Like, is that
Mhm.
what we're going towards? All the buttons are gone, all the media's gone.
Mhm. I just saw I think it was a tweet or just like some sort of news story where apparently all the people that were on Pokemon Go when they were, you know, recording the world around them, that was all
Oh
linked up to
no.
some sort of massive system, and now like the man or whatever, the system now has all this footage of just
Yeah.
every little nook and cranny all over the world. Of
Well,
course.
their developer Niantic was funded by it was either the FBI or the CIA, but they Niantic was funded by the U.S. government.
Mm,
So yeah,
okay. All right.
a lot of fun stuff there.
Let's try
Let's
and
yeah, let's
yeah. Let's
recenter.
try
We're
and
getting way off track.
yeah, let's try and bring this down to something nice and nice and wholesome and not like the government wants to blow up the world or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Namaste. All right. On June 25th, 2017, you released the song Paintings about your grandfather who painted paintings. Now, while not strictly a nerdcore song, it's still kind of about a creation of something. And I got to thinking about how nerdcore is going to shift over the years. I'm reminded of the Freshie Canal raps about like Nosferatu or whatever about like you know not a thing that was a game yesterday. The song Keter Qualities by Musiclight is about SCP, and even your Gangle song I'm Not Okay, which is a song based on the ideas of Gangle, not a song sung by Gangle about what happened in episode 4 of the Digital
Yes.
Circus. It's like the ideas of it. Over the next several years, what are you expecting to be big shifts and new ideas in the nerdcore world?
Um. Personally, I think that so Nerdcore has evolved a lot since it started. It started basically being about, you know, uh, it wasn't singing or rapping about a nerdy topic. It was about being a nerd. Started with MC Frontalot, who actually coined the term. Um, and it's, you know, very 2000s, you know, late 90s 2000s, you know, computer nerd, with like a lot of D&D influences type, very classic nerd stuff. But then it started branching out into, you know, songs about games and songs about anime, and I, you know, there's subsections of everything. You know, there's people who make songs about movies. There's people who make songs about shows. You know, I overlap into that a little bit. There are some artists who make songs exclusively about shows, and then of course, you know, there's anime and there's games and there's uh, pretty much songs about all different types of games. But where is it going to go next? I think that a possibility is that it might actually loop back around. It might loop back around to being about being a nerd, because I feel like there's a lot about that hasn't been voiced in music for a while. You know, it's been voiced, ironically in songs about being, chronically online, um, just kind of joke songs. But and it did start out very silly as well. But either I think it'll loop back around, or I think it will just keep going wherever the nerd zeitgeist goes. Um, and I do think that nerdcore is going to get a lot bigger. I think it's going to it like it's we've got nerdcore stuff in the theater now. We've got Tombstone in the end credits of blockbuster movies. We've got one of the people who works and what you're not one of half of Tombstone, Sam Haft. He also works with Spindlehorse, with Vivzy Pop, and he's even worked with Kesha, who featured on a on a I think it was a Hell of a Boss episode. I don't keep up with those franchises, but uh, you know I think it's just gonna keep getting bigger,
Hmm.
and I think that means yeah, I think the fact that it is getting bigger means that the nerd zeitgeist is kind of taking over more of the cultural, you know, more of the cultural spotlight.
Hmm.
Um, and as that happens, I think there's far more potential for nerdcore. So where's it going to go? I think wherever it can, honestly, because it seems to go wherever it can right now too.
I'm reminded of your uh, fidget spinner song from
Oh
back in the
God.
day, which is not it's not a movie or a game or whatever, but it's sort of like a nerdy cultural thing. So when you say it'll loop around, do you think it'll go back to like the bare bones cultural nerdy ideas rather than like this is a specific game or this is a specific movie?
Yes, I think it's possible.
Hmm.
I don't know what form it would take, but I think that uh, there's a lot of tension in society. There's a lot of tension, especially in nerd culture. There's still stigmas. Stigmas never went away. Um, you know, and I'm not talking about any one in particular, but I think that wherever there are stigmas, there are things that need to be said, and if things don't get said for long enough, well, either things collapse, which they're not collapsing right now, so that's good, or they end up getting spoken. And um, I think that as culture shifts and grows, um, I think that the need to express, you know, the life of a nerd, as it were. I think the need to express that is gonna come back, um, in some form or another.
Th This isn't even one of my questions, but since everything's becoming all like philosophical now, what do you think a nerd is?
Oh man, I think that a nerd is someone who.
Sorry for catching you off guard. I just thought of that just then.
No, man, no, it's a very good question. I actually really like that question. Um, Damn, what is a nerd? Uh, I think that I think it's an arbitrary term. I think it's just an arbitrary term put on people who like things that are perhaps a little bit more, um well, classically, people who are who are more interested in things that are more intellectually involved, um, and over time that became, being very interested in computers. So I think nerd and tech are very intertwined. Um, but then there's also people who don't give a shit about computers, who play D&D and read fantasy books, and they're also nerds. So why are they both nerds? Well, I think that that's just because, people who read and people who maybe play tabletop games, uh it's a more involved process. I think i think that the term nerd is just something that people who don't like to think very much call people who do like to think and have made a hobby of thinking that aren't necessarily philosophers.
I think somebody could be a sports nerd if they have
Yeah,
a cricket bat hanging up like a poster of 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 a player, like a wrestling nerd. They might have a
yeah,
bunch of The Rock or whoever like a modern wrestler is now just up up on their wall. It's like an insular passion for something.
yeah. That's one of the things that nerd has evolved into. That term has evolved into almost a synonym of like fanatic,
Hmm.
or like super fan, or somebody who for the love of the game knows everything about a topic. And it started out as I think when I said that it's when a term that came about because people who don't like to think were making fun of people who do like to think. That's pretty much how it started, not necessarily where it is right now. Because pretty much anybody can be a nerd about something. um I think the overarching term of nerd still applies mostly to tech. I think it if when you think nerd, you think, you know either a really smart, like really smart guy with glasses, the actually type person, um or just somebody who spends a lot of time on, online or on the computer. um but yeah, nerd really applies to anything. It's a word you can kind of just you can just attach to anything, and it means somebody who is very deeply involved and very knowledgeable on a topic.
In your Twitter, oh God, in your
Mhm.
Twitter bio, you said in regards to the characters that you write songs about, and I quote, "We have more in common with them than it may seem." Now, what's funny about this right now is that I'm not going to give you any time to think about this question because it has to be instinctive. As an example, in your latest song, Far Too Broken, it involves the prototype character from Poppy's Playtime. So, what do you have in common with a 15-foot high Jack in the Box with robot spider legs and imbued with the consciousness of a child?
Well, everyone has an inner child. Everyone has trauma. Everyone has something inside them that's broken. Nobody is unscathed, and deep inside there are things that you don't know if you'll ever be able to heal. Um, it's pretty literal,
Hmm.
pretty literal. I find a lot of the, you know creature become monster with child soul inside is, and maybe not even intentionally, but is a very good description of what it's like to be down a bad path, with a broken inner child.
Hmm. Reminds me a lot about, I mean, you don't see many songs about this because it's depressingly like old by internet standards, but Undertale, where
Hmm.
Flowey is re revealed to be the what's his name? Azrael? Yeah,
Azrael.
yeah. He's
Mhm.
like a goat, and then he becomes a flower. Then he becomes a bigger goat, then a smaller goat. It's all very confusing, but yeah,
God, I
that's
love
that's what it
Undertale.
is. Right. Maybe it'll come. But like its 10-year anniversary was quite recently, which makes me feel old. But yeah, maybe it'll come back. Maybe when Nerdcore loops around, you see a lot more. You'll see a lot more Undertale songs, possibly.
Maybe. I mean, Deltarune's still certainly a thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, so what can we look forward to in the future from you, from Mr. Fuse?
Um, well, uh, uh, higher quality music than I think I've ever made. I I don't know if I'm going to be releasing songs in on that like once every month basis. I think I might be taking a little bit more time to really make sure that I'm making something good, making something really good. So it might be every like month and a half or so. But I've got a Digital Circus song coming out here in a little less than a week. God, I need to finish that video. Um, and I planning a Backrooms song because that's going to be a crazy movie. Um, what else? I might have to just find out with everybody else. And I know that it's going to be a lot of good music. I know that I'm making a lot of good music, and I'm making a lot of good, you know, a lot of good stuff. Uh,
And that brings us to the final question, which is always the final question that I ask for these things, which is why are stories important?
all right. Um, why are stories important? Well, when you immerse yourself in a story, when you immerse yourself in an idea, you emotionally attach yourself to that. And from everything I've learned, your body does not know the difference between what's actually happening and what you're thinking about because it only registers emotion. So it's almost like stories allow us to vicariously live someone else's life, either as a tale of empowerment, a tale for fun, or something cautionary. But regardless, um, I think that stories serve as lessons. No matter what the story is, there's always a lesson. There's always a moral of the story. Um, even the most fucked up stories. Um, even the most messed up stories are there's still a lesson. And I think that when we feel the emotions that the characters are feeling in the story, we feel the emotions of the story, it can teach us something.
All right. Mr. KryFuZe, thank you so much for coming on to one story building.
Of course, it was a pleasure.